Um, so the surface of the ocean floor is as varied as the landscape water. We have five major oceans: the Pacific, the Atlantic, the Indian, the Southern Ocean down around Antarctica, and the Arctic Ocean up north. We have low points in the oceans called basins. We'll look at some of the features of oceans later on. Uh, Oceans are vital to life. They help control temperature, they create weather patterns, and they provide a lion's share of the water for the water cycle. Now, according to secular scientists, oceans have filled over hundreds of millions of years. They think that the oceans are more than 3 billion years old. Water may have originally been released from volcanic eruptions or arrived on Earth via icy comets. This really sounds like quite the stretch. We know better, right? We know that everything was created. Um, so that's kind of what secular science holds to. They don't have a solid idea. They're kind of throwing darts, I guess. It's kind of silly. So when we look at the ocean floor, we see a lot of variations. Um, the word basin sort of makes it sound like a flat, boring plain, uh, but that's not the case at all. We have mountain ranges, valleys. We do have flat areas. There's canyons. There's even some volcanoes all on the ocean floor. The basin is that large, flat middle part. Um, while the continental margins are edges rising up to the land. So the edges of the ocean that are closest to land, that's the continental margins, and but most of the ocean floor is considered to be the basin. Um, the largest changes to the basin occur through the movement of our tectonic plates. There's also erosion caused by storms, earthquakes, icebergs, etc. Um, we have mid-ocean ridges, in the Atlantic especially. Um, New rock is being forced upwards and the ocean floor is spreading outwards. So we have those two tectonic plates moving apart. Um, and so there, that edge is being pushed up a little bit. Uh, the Mid Atlantic Ridge is the largest example on Earth. There's a gigantic mountain range that runs through the middle of the Atlantic. Um, An example of a smaller tectonic plate would be the Juan de Fuca plate. It's about 200 kilometers off of Vancouver Island in the Pacific Ocean. So a trench forms when dense ocean plates run into and slide under the continental plates. So we have something like this happening over by the where the crust, continental crust, meets the oceanic crust. The oceanic crust is more dense, so it goes underneath, and it kind of pulls down on the continental crust, so we get a bit of a trench forming. Abyssal plains, these are the areas of the ocean crust uh, that are between a spreading ridge and the trench that it disappears to on the other side. This accounts for about 30% of the Atlantic seafloor and about 65% of the Pacific seafloor. These plains can be covered by about 1 kilometer's worth of sediment. Um, so dead animals, dead plants, dead whatever, and just stuff settling from the top to the bottom of the ocean. Seamounts are old volcanic mountains. Um, they used to be active volcanoes. Some of them are still are. For example, Hawaiian Islands are an example of this. A lot of the volcanoes around Hawaii are still active. So the continental margins are considered part of the continental plate yet. Um, they're made up of the continental shelf. It's about 80 kilometers on average away from shore. Uh, and there's a continental slope that goes down to the oceanic plate. Uh, Continental shelves were above water during the last ice age. There was less water in the oceans, more water trapped as ice and snow and all of that stuff. We get turbidity currents. Um, so that's when we have a bit of a landslide on the slopes. It can create large submarine canyons in the shelf, right? We get a lot of erosion happening. Um, and so that's kind of how submarine canyons can be formed on the continental slope.